On today's edition of the Commanders Report, Jayden Daniels is officially out for Week 8 versus the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Going to be breaking down what impact that's going to have on the Washington Commanders' game plan and my confidence level in Marcus Mariota as he takes the reins this week yet again. But then I'll also get into the latest Commanders trade news and intel. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because if the Commanders make a big trade before the NFL trade deadline, we are going to have a breaking news video for you guys, and that is our promise here on the Commanders Report, that we will always be providing you guys that breaking news coverage whenever the Commanders make a move at any time during the NFL schedule. So make sure you click that subscribe button right now and join the Commanders Report family today. We'll start with the bad news here, guys, that Jayden Daniels is officially out for Monday Night Football versus the Kansas City Chiefs with a hamstring injury. And we kind of expected this, even with these kind of minor hamstring injuries, usually you miss a week, and usually you're putting yourself at risk if you play through that injury 1 week after suffering, those kinds of injuries. Soft tissue stuff can be fickle as well, so we'll see when Jayden can get back into the lineup. Hopefully he can get back for Sunday Night Football in Week 9 versus the Seattle Seahawks. But Marcus Mariota is going to be making his third start this season. He's played quite a bit over the last 2 years for the Washington Commanders. He already has 2 starts under his belt with the Commanders this season. He had quite a few last year as well, played quite a bit and played pretty darn well for this football team and this offense last season. And in moments, he's looked pretty good this year. But his numbers as a whole, not necessarily fantastic. Certainly not at the level as where they were last year. Like, he was at over 70% completion percentage. Like, he was so efficient for this offense last year. But this year, in the pretty much 2.5 games he's played, about 60% completion percentage for just over 420 yards, for 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, and an uninspiring passer rating. So, Marcus hasn't been playing at the same level this year as last year. But then again, he hasn't had Terry McLaurin to throw to when he's been playing, right? So, I think that there's some reasons for why Mariota hasn't been quite as successful this year as last. But, if Mariota has help, it's possible. We talked about it on yesterday's show that Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel could be back in the lineup this week. If he has both of those guys, plus Zach Ertz is out there, plus hopefully you can get the run game going a little bit more with Bill Krosky-Merritt, and this offensive line can finally start getting some push again up front. If you can give Mariota all those things, he's proven he can be a very efficient, very good backup quarterback. You can make an argument, in my opinion, he's a top 40 quarterback in the world today. He's probably not like a franchise-level starter guy, but, with Jayden Daniels out, Mariota can run. He can throw the ball relatively accurately, and, he knows how to operate this offense, this kind of air raidy style of offense that Cliff Kingsbury wants to run here in Washington. So that really is the big X factor for Mariota, in my opinion. Can they give him enough help? And then not only on the offensive side of the ball, but also on defense. Can they have a bounce-back performance on defense this week versus a really good Kansas City offense? I think that's a dubious proposition at best, especially if they continue to play Bobby Wagner and Marshon Lattimore. But I digress, okay? So let me know down there in the comment section. Confidence level in Marcus Mariota as this team's backup quarterback. Put it on a scale of 1, meaning no confidence at all, he's absolutely terrible, to 10, meaning this offense is just fine, Marcus is really, really good. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. YouTube, in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. While I tell you about Prize Picks, get down there in the comment section and answer today's pinned question. With that said, word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And you and I, we make decisions every single day. But on Prize Picks, being right with your decisions can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is here and in full swing, and you better believe I'll be getting my Prize Picks lineups in all season long. Prize Picks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that's new this year that I absolutely love is injury reboots. There's nothing worse than putting in a play and then somebody gets injured and it completely ruins your lineup. But with this new feature from Prize Picks, if one of your players leaves the game in the first half and does not return, Prize Picks will not count it as a loss. So just to take a look here at my Prize Picks lineup for Thursday Night Football this week, I'm taking the less on passing yards for Justin Herbert, the more on Justin Jefferson receiving yards, and I'm taking the more on rushing yards for Kamani Vidal. They're starting running back there in L.A. with Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton out of the lineup. So download the app today if you want to get a play in and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So now let's dive into the latest Commanders trade news and intel from around NFL media, people linking certain players to the Commanders. What are people saying in terms of the Washington Commanders and what they're going to be doing in terms of a trade within the next 2 weeks, because the trade deadline is now less than 2 weeks away. So let's start with ESPN here, where they have connected two trade targets and candidates to the Washington Commanders. You got the cornerback from the Cincinnati Bengals, Taylor-Britt, and then the safety from the New England Patriots, Kyle Duggar. Let's take these guys on one at a time, starting with Taylor-Britt. And ESPN projects this trade that they say, quote-unquote, makes sense for both sides here, where the Commanders would get Taylor-Britt to, essentially replace Marshon Lattimore on the outside, and then the Bengals get Noah Igbinoghene, the backup slot corner here in Washington, plus a 7th-round pick next season. This is what Bill Barnwell from ESPN, who had this idea in his justification for this trade. He says the Bengals might want to be finished with Taylor-Britt, a 2022 second-round pick who hasn't lived up to expectations in Cincinnati. He has flashed at times during his pro career with 7 interceptions between the 2023 and 2024 campaigns, but he has been benched at different points in each of the past 3 seasons. In the final year of his rookie deal, Taylor-Britt is owed $2.4 million. It would be a surprise if he returned to the Bengals next season, so this would be an opportunity to move somewhere with a meaningful track record of turning around frustrating careers. He would step in as a reserve cornerback on the outside for the Commanders, who are allowing more yards per dropback without pressure than any other team in the NFL. Dan Quinn needs to consider making changes given how the likes of Marshon Lattimore and Mike Sainristil have played this season. Adding another cornerback with Taylor-Britt's coverage ability when things go right and feel for the football would give the Commanders another option if they do decide to sit one of their starters for any period of time. And honestly, guys, if the Commanders do decide to make a trade for a player, I do think Taylor-Britt makes some sense for the Washington Commanders. He's somebody that's really fast, somebody that does have starting experience in this league, and he's only 26 years old, so if he works out, he could play alongside Trey Amos on the outside as one of the starting corners here for the Washington Commanders for years to come. Plus, the price tag that Barnwell suggests here, giving up Igbinoghene, who isn't playing at all right now, and a 7th-round pick, I think that's something that's relatively reasonable for the Washington Commanders. And if they feel like they want to let go of Lattimore, bring in somebody that's younger, somebody that could be a part of the long-term solution here in Washington, I'd be open to it. But honestly, guys, my solution, if you're going to get rid of Marshon Lattimore, is go put Mike Sainristil on the outside. He played so much better there last year, and he's just not a fit in the slot in the National Football League, all right? So I would actually address that outside cornerback position with Sainristil and just keep your 7th-round pick at this point. But then we get to Kyle Duggar, where Jeremy Fowler said this about the Patriots potentially letting go of Duggar. He said, the belief in league circles is that Duggar would have been dealt before week 1, but for his cost-prohibitive $9.75 million salary. There was interest then and could be again. Now that New England is sitting at 5-2, perhaps it will revisit a potential deal. However, Duggar has played a combined 102 defensive snaps over the past 2 weeks due to an injury to starter Jalen Hawkins, which might change things. Duggar would be a quality at third safety insurance option for a team in contention. Now, listen, man, I like the idea of going to kind of like a quote-unquote big nickel 3 safety defense. We're seeing it with a bunch of different defenses in the National Football League today with Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore and Jalen Ramsey with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's a number of teams that play 3 safeties in their nickel packages versus putting in like a true slot corner. And Duggar could, potentially allow the Commanders to play that style of defense, which is really interesting to me. But personally, I would just go out in free agency, not have to give up a draft pick to go get him. you can go get C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who is free on the free agency market right now. And honestly, I think, not only does he have more experience playing the nickel position and in the slot than Kyle Duggar does, but honestly, I think that, he would be a better fit for this Commanders defense from day one. So is C.J. Gardner-Johnson a little bit of a live wire and a little bit of a weird kind of behavior type of guy in the locker room? Sure, but I think at this point you got to switch some things up with the Washington Commanders. And when I look at what I would do to fix this Commanders defense, I would get rid of Marshon Lattimore on the outside, put Samerstill on the outside where he played a lot better last season, and then you put C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who you don't have to give a draft pick up for, in the big nickel spot. I think that's the best way forward. You don't have to give up any draft picks in that particular scenario. So I'm not quite sure why the Washington Commanders are being linked as one of the top destinations for Kyle Duggar at this point. But now we can move over to Bleacher Report here, where they listed the Washington Commanders as a top 2 suitor to trade for Raiders wide receiver Jakobi Meyers, who is widely believed to be traded before the NFL trade deadline this year. The author of this particular article is Christopher Knox from Bleacher Report, who had to say this about why he thinks the Commanders could be in play for Meyers. He says, Raiders wide receiver Jakobi Meyers becomes the new top receiver on our board for a couple of reasons. For one, he requested a trade before the start of the season. Secondly, the Raiders are now, quote-unquote, open to moving him, per Diana Rossini of The Athletic. While Meyers, who is dealing with knee and toe injuries, was inactive for Week 7, he's expected to be available after Las Vegas's Week 8 bye. Receiver-needy teams should see if he can be available for them in Week 9. Meyers will be a free agent in the spring, but he won't turn 30 until late next season and has had stretches of terrific play. And in this article, Christopher Knox says that his projected trade value for the 29-year-old Meyers is somewhere between a round 5 to a round 7 pick. And it's listen, man, if you can give up one of your 6th, 7th, or 6th round picks for him, or a 7th round pick for Jakobi Meyers, I am 100% down for that deal. He is a legitimate number 2 receiver in this league, machine gun feet that can really get open versus man coverage. He's really smart too, trying to get open versus zone coverage. He's got terrific hands. He's not much of a deep threat, but the Commanders have Terry McLaurin and Jalen Lane to be able to win deep. So, on paper, and if the Commanders were winning more and they were for sure buying at the deadline, and Noah Brown was out for the season or something like that, I would certainly be interested in Jakobi Meyers. But personally, I wouldn't be in on this at this point in the year. Okay, you got Terry McLaurin, who's going to be returning from injury here in short order. Same thing goes for Deebo Samuel. And frankly, you got some pretty decent pieces behind them in terms of number 3 receiver options, all right? Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane have shown flashes. Chris Moore has shown flashes. Robbie Chosen looked pretty good last week against the Dallas Cowboys, and you just brought in Treylon Burks. So right now, I'm not sure if the Commanders are in a position where they're going to go out and trade for another older wide receiver that is approaching 30 years old when they just paid one in Terry McLaurin all that money, and they have another one on the roster in Deebo Samuel. So, with all due respect to Bleacher Report and Christopher Knox, I just don't see this as a realistic possibility for the Washington Commanders, as fun as it might be to envision Jakobi Meyers in burgundy and gold. So pick your favorite. Out of the 3 guys that have been linked to the Washington Commanders by various different outlets, which one would you like the most for the Commanders to go out and get? Type CTB for Cam Taylor-Britt, KD for Kyle Duggar, or JM for Jakobi Meyers. If I had to pick one right now, given the price tag, I'd probably go Cam Taylor-Britt. But, honestly, I'm not too keen on any of these options, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. But let me know your favorite down there in the comments section. Now we'll finish up today's show with the Athletic's Nicki Jhabvala, who covers the team for the Athletic, and she says that the Washington Commanders should, quote-unquote, stand pat at the deadline and not make any trades whatsoever. This is what Nicki had to say about what she thinks the Commanders should do at the deadline this year. The Commanders made a splash by trading for cornerback Marshon Lattimore at the deadline last year, but they were 7-2 at the time, and suddenly one of the hottest teams in the league. Their plan to rebuild was expedited, and they believed they had a chance to contend with some help on the back end. Much has changed since then. Washington is 3-4 this season with 2 primetime games, a Monday night road game in Kansas City, then the Sunday night meeting with the Seahawks at home before the trade deadline. The Commanders' roster is in shambles because of injuries, and their defense is spiraling. Giving up more draft picks when they're deficient in many areas wouldn't make sense, and the players they might be willing to part with may not generate interest elsewhere. Now, I largely agree with Nicki's analysis here, man. You don't have a ton of draft capital, especially in the early rounds of the draft. You do have a first-round pick and a third-round pick, but you don't have picks in round 2. You don't have picks in round 4. You only have one in round 5, round 3, and then round 1, respectively. And if you give up another one there, like that's just not going to be tenable to like get more young talent on this roster moving forward. It's just not a good strategy if you're looking to get younger and you're trying to get faster, and the youth movement that I want the Commanders to really embrace here over the next several years, with Jayden Daniels being the thing that you build this team around. It just doesn't make sense to me, especially after a 3-4 start. And who knows, by the deadline they might be 3. They might be 3-6 at that point. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to spend more draft picks on veteran players when you really should be using those draft picks on younger players that you develop over time with this football team. And if anything, Washington should sell at the deadline, trade players away, like maybe Daron Payne, who could be got for a pretty decent draft pick right now, or maybe Andrew Wiley. Teams are always looking for offensive line help, and now with Sam Cosmi back, Wiley could maybe be got for a day 3 draft pick, right? Like there's some options for the Commanders to consider in terms of selling some players. Maybe even they think about trading Deebo Samuel. Maybe there's a team out there that would love a gadget player like him. Deebo's just on a 1-year deal, and he's on, he's an older veteran as well. So there's some options there for the Commanders to consider in terms of trying to get more draft picks, but in terms of getting a veteran player to help you win this year, unless you're getting that player for like a 6th or 7th round pick, I'm really not that interested at all in those types of deals. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will the Commanders make any trades before the deadline this year? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think, and that'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day here to come watch some Commanders content with us. We provide you guys free, informative, and entertaining Commanders coverage every single day on this channel. So if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. Until tomorrow, guys, out to the Commanders.